Obviously they chose me, my brother bragged loud enough for the entire table. I'm the only one responsible enough to run the business. She just shows up when she wants. A wave of laughter rolled across the room. My uncle tapped his glass and said, well, she was never leadership material. Someone else whispered, this must be embarrassing for her. And just like that, I became the evening entertainment. But there's a quiet strength that grows in women like me. Women who learn to swallow humiliation and turn it into armor. You sit still. You breathe slowly. You let people underestimate you until their confidence becomes their downfall. Hi everyone. My name is Reina, and this is the story of how my family tried to erase me, and how I made sure they remembered my name for the rest of their lives. The clinking of forks and cheap jokes filled the dining room. My brother stood up, chest puffed like a rooster claiming territory. Mom and Dad are giving the entire business to me, he declared. The restaurant chain, the properties, the accounts, everything. And she, he pointed at me like I was a stain on the tablecloth, gets absolutely nothing. Everyone cheered like he'd delivered a miracle. Everyone except my father. He didn't clap. He didn't smile. His eyes were locked on his plate, avoiding mine like my gaze carried fire. And I saw it. The tremor in his hand. The tiny shake of guilt he tried so hard to suppress. A moment later, his fork slipped from his fingers and hit the plate with a sharp, metallic clatter. I leaned back in my chair, calm, too calm for the chaos erupting around me. Then I spoke with a softness that sliced through the noise. Dad, should I tell them? I asked, tilting my head. Or will you? Silence. Heavy. Suspended. My brother's smile collapsed. What the hell does that mean? He snapped. Tell us what? He looked at me like he expected me to break. But I didn't. I let the silence choke him. I let every eye shift toward my father, whose face had drained to the color of old paper. He knew what I knew. He knew what was coming. And he knew this time. He couldn't stop it. Because the truth was sitting quietly under a stack of financial documents he thought I hadn't found. A truth that would burn this family legacy to ash. My brother kept staring at me like I just pulled a knife out of the mashed potatoes. What are you talking about, Reina? He demanded. Tell us what. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I simply turned my eyes toward our father. His throat bobbed. He wiped his palms on the napkin. Anyone else would have missed it. But guilt has a very specific kind of silence. Mom tried to jump in. Reina, honey, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, I replied. Then I reached under the table and placed a single folded sheet in front of me. My brother lunged toward it with his eyes. What is that? He said, voice cracking. I let him stare for a few seconds. A lease agreement, I said softly. Signed by Dad. For a property he claimed the restaurant didn't own anymore. My father shut his eyes like he'd been punched. My brother scoffed. So, what does that prove? I leaned forward. It proves, I whispered, that the business wasn't being handed to you because you deserved it, but because he was trying to hide the thing he sold without telling anyone. The table went dead still. And I wasn't done. My brother let out a shaky laugh. You're lying. Dad would never hide anything from us. But even he didn't believe his own words. His eyes kept darting to the paper like it might explode. Dad finally spoke, voice low. Reina, you don't understand the situation. Oh, I understand it perfectly, I said. You sold the Riverside branch 2 months ago. Quietly. Off the books. And you funneled the money into an account Mom doesn't know about. Mom jerked back as if I'd slapped her. What account? She whispered. Dad's face collapsed. He couldn't even look at her. My brother slammed his hand on the table. Why would he do that? You're making things up. I slid the second paper forward. Bank printouts with my father's signature at the bottom. His handwriting was unmistakable. This is why, I said. The restaurant was drowning in debt. And instead of telling the family, he tried to fix it by selling assets behind our backs. The room erupted. Chairs scraped. Voices layered over each other. Accusations flew like sparks hitting dry wood. But through all the noise, my brother pointed at me, furious. This doesn't change anything. The business is still mine. I looked at him, and finally smiled. Because he still had no idea what was coming next. I wouldn't celebrate yet, I told him gently, almost kindly, like someone warning a child not to touch a hot stove. My brother scoffed. What, you have more? I did. I reached into my bag and placed one last document on the table. A thick, official envelope. The kind that makes grown men sweat. Dad's face drained before I even touched it. Mom whispered, "Reina, what is that?" I tapped the seal. An addendum to the partnership agreement. Signed 5 years ago. Witnessed. Filed. And legally binding. My brother grabbed it, tore it open, scanned the first lines. And went pale. "This is fake," he muttered. "This can't be real." "It's real," I said softly. Because the truth hit him the way I always knew it would. Dad never had the legal right to give him the entire business. 5 years ago, when Dad begged me to help him cover payroll during a slow season, I had agreed, on one condition. My financial contribution made me a 50% silent partner. He'd signed the papers himself. My brother looked up at me, trembling with rage. "You manipulated him." "No," I said. "I saved the business. You're the one trying to steal it." Dad buried his face in his hands. My brother? He was only just beginning to understand how badly he'd already lost. My brother shoved his chair back so hard it hit the wall. "You tricked Dad into signing this. You planned this years ago." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I planned to keep the business alive," I said. "You planned to walk in today and take credit for everything I held together." Mom stared between us, confused and shaking. "Is this true? Reina helped with payroll? We were struggling that much." Dad finally looked up. His voice cracked. "I didn't want anyone to worry. I thought I could fix it alone. And she..." He gestured toward me. "She stepped in when no one else did." My brother's eyes burned with jealousy. He wasn't angry because he felt tricked. He was angry because I'd been part of the backbone of the business, and he never knew. "So what now?" he snapped. "You think you can run it without me? You think you're better than me?" I folded my hands. "I don't think I'm better. I think I'm responsible. There's a difference." He laughed, short, desperate. "This doesn't matter. Dad can still choose me." I leaned forward, slow and calm. "He can't," I said. "Because the partnership agreement requires both signatures for any ownership transfer." My brother froze. And that's when he finally understood. The throne he bragged about had never been his to claim. The room went so quiet I could hear the radiator humming in the corner. My brother looked from me, to Dad, to the contract. Like the world had tilted under his feet. "That's not fair," he whispered. The same man who mocked me 10 minutes ago was now shrinking in his own shadow. "Fair." I repeated. "You were ready to take everything without blinking. Now fairness matters." He opened his mouth but nothing came out. Mom finally spoke, voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell us, Reina? Why keep this a secret?" I met her eyes. "Because every time I tried to be part of this family, you told me to stay out of the business side. Dad only came to me when he was desperate. And after I helped, you all went back to pretending I didn't matter." My brother flinched. Dad whispered, "I'm sorry." 3 words he had never said to me in my life. But my brother wasn't ready to let go. "This doesn't mean you get control," he said, clinging to denial. "We can renegotiate. We can fix this." I shook my head. "No. You don't get to erase me. Not anymore." He stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Not the quiet daughter. Not the afterthought. But the woman who held half the empire he thought belonged to him. And I wasn't done revealing the truth. My brother's voice cracked as he spoke. "So what, you're going to take half? You're going to tear this family apart just to prove a point?" I stood slowly, letting the tension settle around us. "I don't want half," I said. "I want transparency, accountability, and the truth." Dad looked up, eyes tired, ashamed but finally honest. "What truth?" he whispered. I slid the final sheet across the table. The audit summary I'd commissioned quietly after noticing irregular withdrawals. Dad's face fell. My brother's eyes widened. Mom leaned forward, hands trembling. "What is that?" "Proof," I said softly, "that the missing money didn't just evaporate. Someone took it." My brother's breath hitched. "Are you accusing me?" "I'm not accusing," I replied. "I'm showing you the numbers." The withdrawals lined up perfectly with his gambling weekends. The night he'd claimed he was networking. The week he said he was handling inventory. Dad read the page like it was a verdict. "You stole from the company," he whispered, voice breaking. My brother shook his head violently. No, no, I just borrowed it. Dad, I was going to put it back. He wasn't defending himself. He was drowning. And for the first time in his life, no one rushed to pull him out. My brother sank back into his chair, trembling, clutching the audit like it might somehow rewrite itself. I didn't mean to steal, he whispered. I just needed time. I thought the business would be mine anyway. And there was the confession, the entitlement, the root of every wound. Dad leaned back, a man shattered by the son he'd placed on a pedestal. Mom covered her mouth, tears slipping through her fingers. I didn't shout. I didn't gloat. Revenge doesn't need noise to be felt. I spoke calmly. You tried to take everything from me. You mocked me in front of the whole family. You gambled away company money and expected to inherit the damage you created. My brother lowered his eyes, unable to meet mine. So here's how this ends, I said. There will be no police. No public scandal. No humiliation. Not tonight. His breath shakily released. But, I continued steady as steel, you are removed from all financial access immediately. You will undergo a full audit review. And from this day forward, your position is earned, not gifted. Dad nodded slowly, broken but relieved. Mom wiped her tears and whispered, "Thank you for saving us." My brother finally looked at me. Not with hate. Not with anger. With understanding. Because the girl he mocked had finally become the woman who saved the very legacy he tried to steal. I turned away from the table, my voice soft but final. Now, the business has two partners again. I walked out,